Imagine this. Just close your eyes for a second. The year is 1976. You're in a crowded, sweaty club in New York City, maybe CBGBs. The lights are low, the air is thick, and the volume is just deafening.
And I can almost smell the stale beer.
Right. And on stage, you've got this band, the Ramones. 4 guys, leather jackets, and they're just tearing through a set with this raw, frantic energy.
It's just loud, it's fast.
Super fast. And then they launch into this song, Something to Believe In. And the singer, Joey Ramone, he's practically shouting into the mic, "I'm looking for something to believe in, and I don't know where to start."
You know, that's such a great image to start with, because behind all that punk rock noise, that line, that's a really deep human question. It's not just for punks in the 70s.
Not at all. I call it the punk rock question. And I want to ask you, the person listening right now, that same thing. Do you know where to start?
Right.
We all have these ideas in our heads, ideas about who we are, what's right, what's wrong, what a good society looks like.
Yeah.
But where do they actually come from?
That is the real mystery, isn't it? Did you consciously choose them? Like you're scrolling through a menu and thinking, I'll take a side of capitalism with my order of personal freedom.
Yeah, probably not. So that's what we're going to unpack today. We're tackling a word that sounds, frankly, a little heavy, a little academic: ideology.
It does have that reputation, for sure. It's one of those words that can make you want to take a nap in class.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Really, all an ideology is, it's like the operating system for your brain. It's the software that's always running in the background, shaping how you see everything.
It's the lens you look through. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We are going to break down how your identity gets built.
We're going to look at this huge battle between me versus we. And my favorite part, we're going to see how a bunch of dead philosophers from the 1600s are still basically controlling how you argue on the internet today.
It's amazing how those old arguments just keep coming back. You think you're having a totally new fight on social media, but you're really just playing out a debate between Hobbes and Locke from, 400 years ago?
We're all just in a philosophy cover band.
I like that. So before we get to the dead guys, we need to lay some groundwork. We have to start with the building blocks.
Right. Let's define our terms. People throw around words like beliefs and values all the time. I think we kind of use them to mean the same thing. Are they?
They're close, but there's a really important difference. A belief is something you accept as being true. It's your personal map of reality.
Okay, give me an example.
A simple one is, the Earth is round. That's a belief based on scientific evidence. But a belief can also be something like, people are generally good. That's not a scientific fact, but it's something you might accept as true based on your experiences.
So a belief is what is, or at least what I think is.
Exactly. Now, a value is different. A value is what you consider important or good. It's a judgment. So things like honesty, family, wealth, freedom, those are values.
Okay, I see the distinction. So I might believe that exercising is good for my health, but I have to value my health enough to actually get off the couch and do it.
Perfect. That's it. And when you take a whole collection of these shared beliefs and values and you build them into a system that explains how the world works and, more importantly, how it should work, that's an ideology.
I like to think of identity as a giant jigsaw puzzle.
That's a great metaphor. It's complex with a lot of different pieces that have to fit together.
Right, and everyone's puzzle is unique. You have a piece for your religion or lack of it, a piece for your language, for your gender, your relationship to the place you live. You fit them all together and you get you.
And here's what's so wild. Every single ideology, from communism to fascism to modern liberalism, they're all just trying to answer 3 basic questions.
Only 3. That seems too simple.
It sounds simple, but they're the big ones. First, what are humans like? Are we naturally good, or are we naturally, kind of selfish and bad?
The human nature question. Are we born helpers, or are we born, lunch money stealers?
Exactly. And your answer to that changes everything. If you think people are lunch money stealers, you're going to build a society with a lot of rules and police.
And if you think we're helpers, you build one with more freedom and trust. Okay, what's the second question?
What is the nature of society? How should we all live together? Should there be a clear hierarchy, or should we all be on an equal footing?
And the third?
What is our role as individuals within that society? Is my main job to look out for myself or to serve the greater good of the group?
That last one. That's the big one, isn't it? That feels like the core conflict that defines almost everything in politics.
It absolutely is. It's the fundamental tension between individualism and collectivism.
The me versus the we.
Right. And it's helpful to picture it as a spectrum, a long line. On one end, you have pure individualism. On the other, pure collectivism.
Okay, so let's start with individualism, the me side. What does that look like?
Individualism puts personal freedom and self-reliance first. It values competition, private property, and the idea that you are responsible for your own success and your own failure.
It's the pull yourself up by your bootstraps philosophy. I am the master of my own destiny. If I succeed, that's on me. If I fail, well, that's on me too.
Exactly. Now, let's slide all the way to the other end of the line, to collectivism. This way of thinking places the needs of the group way ahead of the individual. It values cooperation, sharing, and the idea that we are all responsible for each other.
It's the we're all in this together idea, your brother's keeper.
Precisely. But here's the most important part of this whole concept. Almost nobody lives at the extreme ends of that line.
Right. A pure individualist would be, what, a hermit in a cave who refuses to use roads because other people paid for them through taxes?
And a pure collectivist would have no personal thoughts, no privacy, nothing that wasn't for the good of the group. It would be, well, like the Borg from Star Trek.
So we all live in the gray area. We're constantly borrowing ideas from both sides.
We are. And you can see this play out in your own life. Let's talk about the thing all students love to hate. Group work in school.
Oh, the group project.
Yeah.
The ultimate social experiment.
It really is. Now, if you're the student in the group who's thinking, ugh, I hate this. I know I'm going to end up doing all the work while someone else slacks off and gets the same grade. That's your inner individualist speaking.
Yeah, you're focused on fairness, on your personal effort being rewarded.
For sure. But if you're the student who thinks, this is great, I'm good at research, but I can't draw, and Sarah is an amazing artist, together we can make a way better project than I ever could by myself, that's a collectivist mindset.
You're valuing the outcome of the group over your own individual contribution.
And this scales up to much bigger things than a history poster. Think about war. It's the ultimate test of this spectrum. When a country starts a draft, it's making a purely collectivist argument.
It's saying the survival of the group, the nation, is more important than your individual life.
It's the ultimate sacrifice for the we. But if you resist that draft, if you say, my life is my own, my conscience forbids me from fighting, you're making a powerful individualist statement.
You're saying the me has rights that the we can't take away.
And things get really dangerous when leaders try to erase that gray area to make everything black and white. We saw a really stark example after 9/11.
Right, when President George W. Bush gave that famous speech.
He stood before the world and said, you're either with us or you are with the terrorists.
There's no middle ground in that statement.
None. It's an attempt to force a choice, to eliminate nuance. It says you have to pick a collective, our, us, or their, them. But the truth is, most functional societies have to live in that messy middle. We want collective security, like a police force, but we also want individual rights, like a warrant, before they can break down your door.
So if we're all somewhere on this spectrum, what puts us there? What are the things that shape our beliefs and push us one way or the other?
There are so many factors. Let's start with the big one. Culture and language. They're so deeply connected you can't really pull them apart.
There's this great story about a Ukrainian-Canadian artist, William Kurelek.
Oh yeah, his story is fascinating. He was born in Alberta to Ukrainian immigrant parents, and his parents had a very, very practical set of values.
There were farmers on the prairies. Life was about survival, hard work, getting food on the table.
Absolutely. And their son, William, he wants to be a painter. From his father's perspective, this was, well, it was a total waste of time. It didn't plant crops, it didn't build a fence, it wasn't work.
So they were trying to push him towards their collectivist family survival ideology.
They were. But his art became this powerful expression of his own individual identity, which was still deeply connected to his roots. He painted these incredibly vivid scenes of prairie life, of his Ukrainian heritage, of his Catholic faith. He didn't reject his culture, he interpreted it on his own terms.
It shows that your culture isn't just a set of rules you follow. It's something you're in a conversation with. And language is a huge part of that.
It's maybe the biggest part. Just look at the struggle for Francophone rights in Canada. The fight to have French language schools or the sign laws in Quebec. To an outsider, it might seem like a small thing.
But it's not about grammar.
It's not. It's about identity. The belief is that if you lose the language, You lose the culture. You lose a unique way of seeing the world. A whole worldview just vanishes.
And we're seeing that with indigenous languages, too. I was reading about the push in Nunavut to revitalize Inuktitut using technology.
That's such a cool project. For a long time, the digital world was an English world. Keyboards, software, they just weren't built for syllabic languages.
Which basically tells a whole culture to be modern, you have to leave your language behind.
It's a huge ideological pressure. So what they're doing, creating Inuktitut operating systems, getting the syllabics online, is a way of saying, no, our language and our identity can and will exist in the modern world.
It's so important because when a language like Salish or Kootenai is in danger of dying out, it's not just words that are lost.
It's a whole system of thought, a whole relationship with the world. Which brings us to another huge factor, our relationship to the land.
This is a big one, especially in a place like Canada. The difference in perspective is stark.
It is. If you look at the historical European settler view, the land was seen as a resource. It was a commodity.
It was something to be owned, free land that was just waiting to be claimed, fenced off, and used for profit.
Right. The land is an object, and I am the individual who will tame it and make it productive. It's a very individualist, capitalist viewpoint.
And how does that compare to many indigenous perspectives?
It's almost a complete reversal. In many First Nations worldviews, you don't own the land. The land owns you. You are a caretaker, a steward. It's a spiritual relationship, not a commercial one. The land is a living thing that sustains you, and you have a responsibility to sustain it.
So it's stewardship versus ownership.
Exactly. And that fundamental ideological clash is at the heart of almost every single modern conflict over pipelines, logging, or resource development. It's not just about jobs versus the environment. It's about two totally different definitions of what land even is.
Okay, another huge piece of the identity puzzle is gender. Society has always had ideas about appropriate behavior for men and women.
And those ideas can change dramatically over time as ideologies shift. You just have to look at the story of the famous five in Canada.
It's such a wild story. So it's 1917, and Emily Murphy is appointed as a judge in Alberta. First female judge in the entire British Empire.
A huge moment, you would think, a victory for progress.
You would think. But on her very first day in court, a lawyer stands up and challenges her right to be there. And his argument wasn't that she was unqualified.
No, his argument was that under the law at the time, the British North America Act, she wasn't legally a person.
I mean, that sounds completely insane to us now. She's sitting right there. How is she not a person?
But he was using a legal loophole. The law said that persons were eligible to hold public office, and since that had always been interpreted to mean men, the argument was that women were therefore excluded. They weren't persons under that specific part of the law.
So it took this massive legal battle, the persons case, all the way to the highest court in Britain.
To finally rule in 1929 that yes, women are indeed persons.
It's incredible that had to be legally decided.
Yeah.
And it's not just ancient history. You look at a place like Kuwait.
Right. Women in Kuwait only gained the right to vote and run for office in 2005.
2005. That is so recent. It just shows that these ideological beliefs about gender, which can seem so permanent and natural, are constantly being challenged and changed.
They are. What seems normal to one generation can seem completely absurd to the next.
And we can't talk about influences without hitting the biggest one in our lives today, the media.
We were swimming in it, 347. And the key thinker here is Marshall McLuhan, a Canadian philosopher who said, "The medium is the message."
That's one of those quotes everyone knows, but what does it actually mean?
What he meant was that the way we get our information changes us more than the information itself. So reading a news story in a newspaper is a different experience and affects your brain differently than watching the same story on television.
How so?
A newspaper is quiet. It requires focus, active participation. You read, you process. TV is passive, it's emotional, it's fast, it has images and sounds that watch over you.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
And now you think about something like TikTok.
Exactly. The medium is a short, endlessly scrolling, algorithm-driven video loop. That medium teaches your brain to value speed, novelty, and instant gratification. That changes your values, regardless of whether you're watching a video about science or a cat falling off a couch. The tool itself is shaping you.
And advertising understands this perfectly. It's all about shaping values. The Camel cigarettes example is a classic.
A perfect case study. In the 90s, they used this cartoon character, Joe Camel, to sell cigarettes. Now, why would you use a cartoon to sell an adult product?
You wouldn't. You're obviously targeting kids.
Obviously. The whole point was to create an association in young minds between smoking, a deadly addiction, and things like being cool, fun, and popular. They were trying to install a value to override a fact.
And it was so effective that they were eventually forced to stop the campaign in 1997.
Yes. And that kind of manipulation is what led to groups like Adbusters, the culture jammers.
They're the ones who make those parody ads, right?
Right. They take a famous ad and twist the message to reveal the underlying ideology. They're trying to wake us up, to show us how our beliefs and values are constantly being shaped by the media we consume.
So all these things, culture, land, gender, media, they're all shaping the pieces of our identity puzzle. But underneath it all are these really old, deep, philosophical roots. Let's go back to that first question. What is human nature?
Are we good or are we evil?
Exactly. And there are three main philosophers we have to talk about here. These are the guys who basically set the terms for every political debate we have today. Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau.
The big three. Let's start with Thomas Hobbes.
Hobbes is our pessimist. He was writing in the 1600s during the English Civil War. So he's looking out his window and just seeing chaos, violence, and death.
Yeah, his context is everything. So when he did this thought experiment, he called it the state of nature, imagining what humans were like before any governments or laws. He pictured a total nightmare.
He's the one who said that life would be
Solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
not a very cheerful view of humanity.
Not at all. He believed that at our core, we are driven by fear and self-interest. He thought that without a strong ruler, we would just inevitably destroy each other.
So what was his solution?
A Leviathan.
Yeah.
A massive, all-powerful government, probably a dictator, whose only job is to maintain order and keep us safe from ourselves. In his view, you have to give up your individual freedom to get security.
It's a trade-off. No freedom of speech, but hey, you're not getting murdered for a loaf of bread.
That's the Hobbesian bargain.
Okay, so that's one view. Humans are bad. We need a cage. Then who's next?
Next is John Locke, and he is the optimist, or at least a Democrat. He looked at human nature and saw something very different. He believed we are rational, intelligent, and capable of reason.
So we don't need a dictator to keep us in line.
No. Locke argued that power comes from the people. This is a revolutionary idea called the consent of the governed. The government only has legitimacy because we, the people, agree to let it govern us.
And what's its job?
A very limited job. According to Locke, the only purpose of government is to protect our natural rights. And for him, those were life, liberty, and property.
That sounds very familiar.
It should. The American Declaration of Independence is basically a rewrite of John Locke, and he added a crucial part. If the government fails to protect those rights or starts to take them away, the people have the right to get rid of it.
So for him, the highest value isn't security, it's freedom and individual rights.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have Hobbes the pessimist and Locke the Democrat. Who's our third guy?
Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And he is the idealist, maybe even the radical. Rousseau looked at Hobbes' state of nature and thought it sounded pretty great.
He thought nasty, brutish, and short sounded good.
No, he thought Hobbes' description was totally wrong. Rousseau believed humans are naturally good, compassionate, and free. He had this idea of the noble savage, that before civilization we were happy and innocent.
So, what went wrong? Why aren't we happy and innocent now?
In a word, society. His most famous line is, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains."
The chains are things like...
Private property, mostly. He thought that the moment the first person put a fence around a piece of land and said, "This is mine," that's when inequality, jealousy, and corruption began. Society is what messes us up.
So what's his solution? Go back to living in the woods.
Not exactly. He knew that wasn't possible. His ideal was a society where all citizens participate directly in making the laws to create what he called the general will. He didn't want us to vote for representatives like Locke did. He wanted a direct collective democracy.
So these three competing ideas, that we're bad and need control, that we're good and need freedom, or that we're good but society makes us bad, that's the foundation for everything.
It really is. Our modern economic and political systems are just different combinations and interpretations of those three core ideas.
Okay, let's look at economics then.
Yeah.
You've got capitalism on one side and socialism or communism on the other. How do they connect?
Well, capitalism is pure Locke. It's built on individualism, private property, and competition. The whole system runs on supply and demand with as little government interference as possible.
The burger joint example from the textbook is a good way to explain this.
It is. So a new burger place opens up and needs to hire cooks. They offer minimum wage, but nobody applies. In a purely capitalist system, what happens next?
Well, the owner has to make the job more attractive. They have to offer more money, better benefits, whatever it takes to get people to want to work there.
Exactly. No government committee decides the wage. The invisible hand of the market, that is, the free choices of individuals, solves the problem. It's all about self-reliance and the pursuit of self-interest.
But then you have socialism, which looks at that same burger joint and asks a different question.
Right. The socialist asks, why is the owner getting rich while the person actually flipping the burgers can't afford to pay their rent? It's a collectivist critique.
And that brings us to Robert Owen and his Utopian experiment. This story is amazing.
It's one of my favorites in all of history. So it's 1799. Owen is only 22 years old, and he buys a cotton mill in New Lanark, Scotland. Now, a factory back then was a horrific place.
Think Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
Long hours, dangerous machines, child labor, just miserable.
A perfect real-world example of Hobbes's nasty, brutish life. But Owen had a different idea. He was a follower of Rousseau in a way. He believed that circumstances shape character.
In other words, if you treat people like dirt, they'll act like it.
Yeah.
But if you give them a decent environment,
They'll become better people. So he turned his factory town into a little pocket of utopia. He cut the workday from 13 hours down to 10. He built clean, safe housing for his workers. But the most radical thing he did was with the children.
he opened a school.
Yes, the first infant school in the world, probably. And he didn't just teach them reading and writing. They studied music and nature and dancing.
Dancing. For the children of factory workers, that must have seemed insane at the time.
It was revolutionary. He was proving his point that if you invest in the collective good, in education, in health, in happiness, you end up with better, more productive individuals, which in turn creates a better society.
And if you push that idea even further to the left on the spectrum,
You get to communism, which says the government should control all the resources to ensure everyone's needs are met equally. The famous slogan being, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need.
and these economic systems are tied to political ones. A good citizen means something totally different in a democracy than in a dictatorship.
Completely different. In a democracy, which is based on Locke's ideas, a good citizen is actually supposed to be a little skeptical. You're supposed to question authority. Look at the two students, Fitzgerald and Durham Singh.
The ones in Alberta who sued the government.
Yes, they took the government to court arguing that the voting age should be lowered to 16. Now, they lost the case, but that's not the point. The point is that in a democracy, they could do that. Challenging the rules is part of being a good citizen.
Whereas in a dictatorship, which is much more Hobbesian,
A good citizen obeys. Questioning the leader is seen as a threat to the stability and security of the whole country, so you do what you're told.
and you can have even more rigid structures, like the caste system in India.
That's a fascinating example of a collectivist structure that's based on heredity. You're born into a social class, a caste, and that traditionally determines your entire life, your job, your social status, everything.
But modern India is a democracy, and they're trying to undo some of that historical injustice.
They are. They've put in place what we'd call affirmative action programs, reserving spots in universities, in government, for people from the lower, historically oppressed castes.
Which sounds like a good collectivist solution, trying to lift up the whole group.
It does, but it creates a massive conflict with individualist values. Because you have students from higher castes who score better on exams but lose their spot to someone from a lower caste with lower scores. They're arguing for individual merit.
I worked harder. I should get the spot.
While the other side is arguing, my entire group has been held back for centuries. We need this to catch up. It's that me versus we conflict playing out in real time with real consequences.
It seems like your ideology even changes how you see the past.
Oh, absolutely. History is never just a list of facts. It's an interpretation. The Columbus Day example is perfect for this.
Right. So for some people, particularly some Italian Americans, celebrating Columbus Day is a source of pride. It's a celebration of exploration, bravery, the connection between the old world and the new.
It's a positive story of progress and discovery.
But for many indigenous peoples, that exact same day, that exact same historical figure represents something completely different.
For them, it represents the beginning of a genocide. It represents invasion, disease, theft of land, and the destruction of their cultures.
So same event, totally different interpretations. Your ideology determines which parts of the story you focus on.
It's the lens you're looking through, and it also shapes your vision for the future. Every ideology has its own version of utopia.
But Karl Marx had a very specific dream, didn't
He did. He imagined a communist future where you wouldn't be stuck in one boring, repetitive job your whole life. He had this famous quote where he said you could hunt in the morning, fish in the afternoon, rear cattle in the evening, critique after dinner.
Sounds like a pretty relaxing day.
The point wasn't about fishing. It was that you would be free to be a whole person, to develop all of your talents, because the collective would take care of the basic necessities of life. You wouldn't just be a factory worker.
And then you have a different vision, like the green vision for the future.
Right. That's a vision where we redefine what progress even means. Maybe it's not about more industrial growth and more consumer goods. Maybe it's about sustainability, balance, and a healthier relationship with the planet.
So after all this, what does it mean for us? For you listening?
It means you're already an ideologue. You might not have thought of yourself that way, but you are. Every day you're making choices based on these principles.
When you decide whether to share your study notes or keep them to yourself to get a better grade on the curve, that's an ideological choice.
When you decide what you think about taxes or immigration or the environment, you're using these ideas whether you realize it or not.
Okay, that was a lot. Let's do a quick recap. We started by talking about identity as a puzzle. Then we looked at the main conflict. Individualism versus collectivism, or me versus we.
Then we looked at all the factors that shape us, like culture, gender, and the media.
We met the big three philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, and saw how their ideas led to our modern economic systems of capitalism and socialism.
It's really a toolkit for understanding not just the world, but your own mind.
So let's do a quick knowledge check. 3 questions. No grades, just for you. Ready?
Question 1. If you believe that competition is a good thing and that people should be responsible for their own success, are you leaning more toward individualism or collectivism?
That would be individualism.
Question 2. Which philosopher was the pessimist who thought life and the state of nature was nasty, brutish, and short? Hobbes, Locke, or Rousseau?
Yeah, it was definitely Hobbes.
And final question. Our utopian factory owner, Robert Owen, improved his workers' lives by giving their children an education that famously included what surprising activity?
It was dancing. He had them dancing.
So how did you do?
I just want to leave you with one last thought. We started this whole thing with the Ramones, looking for something to believe in. And maybe after listening to all this, you feel like your own puzzle is even more jumbled up than before.
And that's totally fine. In fact, it's good. The goal isn't to pick a team individualism or team collectivism and then just blindly defend it.
The goal is to understand why you believe what you believe. To see the puzzle pieces and decide for yourself how they fit together. Go build your own puzzle. Don't let a bunch of dead guys from the 1600s do it for you.
Thanks for diving deep with us.